Today, we are ranking every single boss battle from Metroid Prime 4 from worst to best. These will be based on the boss's difficulty, uniqueness in order to take it out, like its puzzle elements, and also the arena and music that sometimes help to influence that atmosphere. Now, the game only has around 10 bosses, but I did slip in an extra one that I considered a boss battle, and you'll see it when we get there. Now, this goes without saying, but I'll say it, we are talking about every boss in this game, so spoilers ahead. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe for more rankings like this, and let's get into every single boss battle in Metroid Prime 4 ranked. Starting the list at number 11, we have Varmis. Varmis is this giant Doom-like sandworm that actually reminds me more of Molduga from Breath of the Wild than anything else. This is a relatively simple fight that you'll actually fight on your motorcycle Viola, where it's your job to just attack its tail with weapons until eventually it slows down when you can then run into it. It's really nothing that seriously difficult, and in fact, I don't think I even got hit one time in this entire boss fight, but at the same time, I don't consider this boss fight being bad. I mean, they did probably as much as they could do with motorcycle gameplay with a boss battle, and it does have some aura points because it makes you feel really cool battling him on a motorcycle in the middle of the desert of this alien planet, so like, yeah. Props to that, but the boss battle is just okay, and it doesn't stand up against any of the other bosses in this game in my opinion. Number 10, we have Keratoss, the boss of the Ice Belt. This one felt a little too similar to a boss in the previous world that we fought in Vault Forge. Keratoss is a boss that is pretty straightforward with not a lot to it in order to take it out. You simply have to have good aim and shoot its eyeball in the center in order to get it agitated. It'll then try to rush you with a roll attack where you have to boost out of the way at the right second. It'll slam into the wall, revealing its underside where the Metroid has burrowed into its stomach. At least I hope that's its stomach. It's not that it just looks like the previous boss with its giant orbital shape, but it also has very similar attacks where you simply just boost out of the way at the last second and then shoot the weak point. So then this just becomes an average Metroid enemy of boosting and shooting, repeating over and over again. In fact, he really doesn't change up anything else in his moveset. He'll still only rush you one time and still shoot the same exact ice weapons at you that you can easily dodge. I do wish Keratoss did more in this boss battle, like even using the grapple in this same world to pull off pieces of its hard outer shell, but instead it's just another boost shooter. And of course that means for number 9, we move on to the boss before this one, being Zelios of Vault Forge. Once again, I really wish we got the grapple beam in this world and they forced us to use it to pull off the panels and then to attack this thing, but you're not really doing anything super interesting to take out Zelios. Instead, you're just shooting the panels that pop up in order to blast them off without really any strategy. You can really just start spamming shots until you take out most of its outer shell and expose the core. And the core is big enough to where you don't necessarily need to have super good aim. And I really wish they used other parts of your abilities, like the psychic beam to maybe get a beam in between one of the panels. But once again, this just felt like another boost out of the way and shoot. The only reason I put this one higher than Keratoss is because it actually is kind of difficult. I mean, I found myself getting kind of close to death at the very beginning because some of its lasers and projectiles that it shoots out can be complete screen clearers. Once again, I wanted to love Zelios, but for one, it's a boss that didn't seem to be too unique. We've seen bosses like this in Metroid Prime 3 and even Metroid Prime Hunters, and Zelios just kind of acted like another big bullet sponge. This might be cheating because technically the game doesn't treat this as a boss battle, but Behemoth is a late game boss. As you're completing your backtracking and about to beat the game, you'll come across this guy, and it may not be set up or listed as a boss in this game, but it very much feels like it. From the intro cutscene of it appearing, to the large amount of health, and to the fact that you can only fight this thing one time in the entire game, it's going on this list as a boss, I'm sorry. But it actually is one of the more unique ones, believe it or not, for not being a main world boss battle. I think it's a very good self-contained boss battle that actually has some unique ways of taking it out. You actually have to use a different beam this time in order to clog up its pores to prevent it from firing. Doing so will allow you to focus more on the individual eyeballs. There's 4 of them scattered across its face, and you have to have some really good aim to make sure you shoot each one, especially the side ones. Something about this boss just felt like classic Metroid Prime to me. I really don't know what it is. It wasn't this boss battle with this gigantic health bar where you're slowly chipping away at it. It has one clear way of taking him out, taking out all 4 of the eyeballs. Behemoth may not technically be a boss battle in this game, but it was able to do some better things than a lot of the other bosses on this list. Carvex is the first major boss of the game, and it may not be anything super difficult at all, but it has a super unique premise that most of the bosses in this game don't even have. 90% of the bosses in this game do not use any of Samus's abilities that she gains in the adventure. Carvex is one of the first ones in the game that actually does, however. In order to defeat Carvex, you have to shoot the brambles off its tentacles, but then you will expose the blue liquid inside, and the only way to take them out is by doing it simultaneously, with all 2 or all 3 of the tentacles being exploded at once. The only way to do this is to use your psychic beam, where you have to guide your beam through each tentacle. Now the first couple of times this is actually really cool, but unfortunately it does kind of get old a little fast simply due to the fact that it's pretty easy to control. Everything moves down to an absolute snail's pace, so you're slowly moving this beam around the room, which can get a little underwhelming at times. But I really love the final phase where it puts up all these roots around the room where you have to guide your beam through the roots. Once again, this boss battle really isn't all that difficult, but for one of the first major bosses in this game, I think it did a really great job utilizing an ability that you got not too long ago before reaching this area. It adds a classic Metroid puzzle element to the boss battle that the previous Prime games were known for. So to me, Carvex started this game off on a really high note. Next up, we have Aberex. Aberex is actually the first boss battle in the entire game before we even get to Phenoros, and it's pretty much a giant space pirate that's been corrupted by a Metroid. This boss battle is actually extremely well done. I played it twice in the demo kiosk, and playing it again was just as fun. It's very simple, but it does some unique things for a first boss battle. It's still not just a boost shooter. In fact, you gotta actually do a lot of things in Samus's moveset. It kind of works as a mini tutorial boss, showing you everything that Samus is able to do before losing her powers. You have to shoot the weak points on its 2 shoulder blades and its 2 hips, and you'll do this by using the brand new aim lock-on, which isn't technically new. It was in Metroid Prime Federation Force, but it's brought back here, but it's used actually in the boss battle to focus your aim at small weak points. So you can't just spam a giant open weak point. You have to actually have really good aim, especially when it throws up its shields in order to block your fire. It also makes you utilize things like your double jump over giant lasers that it shoots out, or maybe even roll under them in morph ball mode. I love this type of stuff, and it constantly kept you on your toes and kept a really good flow to this boss battle without repeating constant patterns. Between Aberex and Carvex, it really started the game off on a couple of high notes for me. Next up, we have Psyux number 2, or should we say fake Psyux number 2, because we know this isn't the real Psyux yet. But I really love this 1v1 battle. In fact, every 1v1 battle against Psyux in this game is really well done. In fact, these are probably some of my favorite 1v1 battles in the entire series. I think they are way better than the Dark Samus battles and utilize a bunch of different moves than just your dodge and shoot. Now, I will say the second Psyux battle is probably my least favorite of the 3 that you'll fight in this game. But the second one will have you actually using your grapple beam in a boss battle for once. I really love how you can grab the edges of the room and just hang and shoot Psyux as he's menacingly walking toward you with a shot coil. But when you battle Psyux on the ground, he's really just fast on his feet where you have to quickly move out the way as he'll rush you and do different attacks like cause you to use your double jump or maybe even your morph ball to get under lasers. It is unfortunate that it's the only boss battle in the game that uses the grapple beam, but it's still a really fun boss battle nevertheless. Coming in at number 4, we have the Omega Griever. As cool as this boss looks, it's really unfortunate that it didn't do anything else that utilized different abilities from Samus once again. That seems to be my main complaint with the bosses in this game. But it requires extreme precision. Not only do you have to blast it off the walls by shooting its weak point, which is only its arms, but you have to continue to shoot its arms as it claws at you on the ground. Doing so will then give you opportunities to shoot its chest. One pretty unique thing that you can do is shoot his arm, go into Morph Ball in order to bomb his chest, which will then prop it back, allowing you to completely unload on his chest. That's the type of stuff that I really like with a boss battle, something that truly has you thinking instead of just blasting random weak points. And when he's up on the wall, he's moving so fast you almost have to lead your shots out in front in order to hit them. This boss battle was also one of the more intense ones in the entire game, slowly draining your health with acid, and having a couple extremely powerful laser attacks that I was just not ready for. It also has a fake out at the very end, but it's so painfully obvious it's still holding on to the suit upgrade, and also it still has health on the screen, so like we knew it was still alive. But the boss battle just pretty much carries on for a little while longer, but I really love the design and art direction of this boss. However, I felt like they could have done a little more with it, and I could definitely see why some people might like some of the other bosses in the game a little bit over this one, but it's definitely not a bad boss. We are now down to our final 3, and at number 3 we have the first encounter with Psyux, or fake Psyux. This boss battle is the epitome of a great 1v1 battle. There's so many things that you'll have to keep an eye on and watch out for Psyux when he dashes toward you, or you have to dash out of the way, or shoot a giant laser that you need to double jump over, or maybe a giant laser above you that you need to roll underneath. I just felt like every single attack constantly kept me on my toes, quickly having to react to it. And it felt like one of the most fluid boss battles out of the entire series. Like I said, I'm normally not a fan of the 1v1 boss encounters in Metroid Prime, but this one is truly spectacular. There's even a really cool segment where it forces you to use your morph ball and its bombs in order to take out Psyux in a tornado form, where you have to time your bombs for when he dashes toward you. Something like this once again reminds me of something straight out of classic Metroid Prime. For this first encounter being a fake Psyux, I think it was handled extremely well. Coming in at number 2 on this list, we have Phenoros, the boss of the flare pool. For this being my least favorite location in the game, level design wise, this is definitely one of the best boss battles in the entire game. It's split into multiple phases. The first phase has you chasing the giant serpent through lava while riding your Viola bike, and you can actually fire projectiles at its blue boils at the bottom of its stomach. It's not anything super special, but it's a nice touch before you engage in the actual boss fight. You'll then transition to phase 2, but I also love how cinematic this boss fight is. It feels very familiar to something you'd see in Metroid Other M. It reminds me so much of the Goyagma boss fight. Similar to Behemoth, you have to take out Phenoros's eyes one at a time. Of course, while also using this game's over-reliance on boosting out of the way at the last second. You have to have pretty good accuracy in order to take out its eyes, which will then allow you to take out its mouth, while just blasting it with rockets or whatever powerful attacks you have. Phase 2 will open up 2 appendages on the side of its head and expand where the eyes are located now. And as there were some tough bosses in this game that put up a challenge, this is one of the few that almost killed me literally right away. Oh yeah, and remember when I said this boss was pretty cinematic? You can actually get eaten, which will go into a cutscene. You then have to mash A in order to jump out of its mouth. But this is a boss battle that will constantly keep you on your toes, quickly having to jump into Morph Ball in order to dodge giant fiery lasers and jump out of the way at the last second before you get eaten. Not to mention, it has one of the best ways to finish off a boss that I've ever seen. In fact, this is the exact type of stuff I wish they did a lot more of at the boss battles. The Metroid has actually combined with the insides of Phenoros, so you have to guide a psychic beam in its mouth, down its throat, and into its intestines in order to take out the Metroid egg. I'm not gonna lie to you, it took me a little while to figure out what they wanted me to do, because it kept waking up, and I'm like, I can't get over there to them, what do they want? And when I figured it out, it was one of the biggest aha moments and most exciting moments I've had in the entire game. Now, being honest with you, I wanted to put Phenoros at number 1 simply because of the way that you take it out. It was just that good. But the actual boss fight with Phenoros, I feel like lacked some of the highs that the final boss with Psyux had. And let me be honest, this final boss is not perfect. For one, I have a huge gripe with this boss fight's phase 1 because it could have been one of the best parts of the entire fight. You have to take out the tendrils by shooting the tips of the tentacles, which it literally is classified as the tips in the in-game description, but you have to break them each apart and rip them off with your grapple beam. Finally letting us use the grapple beam one more time than just one fight in this entire game. Now first off, his tentacles can transform into the 3 different elements in the game, being fire, ice, and electricity. Now I'm not entirely sure as to what you're supposed to do with this. I don't know if you're supposed to use a weakness like maybe ice, which isn't even really a weakness if you think about it, or am I too supposed to use the same element that he's using? I still don't know, because in my head I thought using fire against his ice tentacles made a lot of sense, but I didn't really notice a big difference, so maybe somebody can find out down below. But I feel like what they try to do was something similar to the final boss of the first game being against Metroid Prime itself, which allowed you to use the different elements that he was using in order to counteract them. But no matter what element I switched to, I couldn't really feel a major difference actually happening, so I just decided to blast them with whatever. But this was never a big phase of the boss battle. In fact, This was literally just for you to shoot them in order to revert him back to his green style. But my major issue with this entire boss battle is the side companions, because I actually didn't mind them the entire course of the game, even having to revive them in some of the past worlds. But reviving them at the very end of the game during the final boss battle is some of the dumbest stuff that I've ever seen. Why do I have to stop fighting the final boss in order to revive them? It makes no sense, and sometimes multiple of them will go down at the same time. This is just so not Metroid Prime. Thankfully, this didn't ruin the experience or the boss battle for me, but it definitely was annoying if I gotta be honest. I really wish that was not how this boss battle worked. But at the end of the day, it could be a really good phase 1 if I just figured out what the heck they wanted me to do with the elements, because it's the only boss battle in the game that looks like it might require you to use different elemental beams. Well, thankfully, where phase 1 fell short, the other 2 phases were absolutely cracked. Phase 2 will have Psyux flying you through a wormhole into space where you'll actually battle on this on-rail shooter. You have little control to move left, right, up, and down, and you have to slowly move out of the way in order to dodge his attacks as you're going through this wormhole. One of the attacks that he uses forces you to use your psychic beam to shoot it through his beam walls in order to blast him on the other side of the tunnel. The battle then enters a phase 3, where you'll fly into what seems to be the center of the universe. It is one of the most beautiful arenas for a boss battle ever, and reminds me something straight out of Xenoblade. And you know how much I enjoyed the first 2 fights against the fake Psyuxes, but now you fight the real one, and he just strings everything together that you fought so far, and includes some new ones where you'll be utilizing almost every single part of Samus's kit. All of Psyux's attacks just feel so much fun to dodge, whether it be ducking under lasers, jumping over them, boosting out of the way at the last second, but it's not just a boost and shoot, because you'll be dodging so many different things. It's more than just boosting out of the way. Multiple hops, even going into Morph Ball into a cool little mini game where they also bring back Psyux's Morph Ball form, being the Lockjaw from Metroid Prime Hunters. In this battle, he's actually able to steal an entire energy tank from you, and you have to hurry up and dash back in order to get it, or boost into him in order to knock it back out of him. He even has this really cool black hole attack that's pulling in every single attack that you use, so you have to use your psychic beam to guide it into him, which it already slowly pulls that one as well. This is an extremely good final boss with Psyux, and just with a couple tweaks made to the first phase of this boss, this could have been near perfect. And that is every single boss battle in Metroid Prime 4 ranked from worst to best. Of course, this is just my opinion. Maybe you liked the boss that I didn't, or didn't like a boss that I did like. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite boss battle in the entire game was, and let me know what your least favorite was, and if you agree or disagree with my list. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Metroid Prime and Nintendo in general, and like always, I hope you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you on the next one. See ya, guys.